We played the Call of Duty Alpha, a few weeks ago? It was a 2v2 mode, rotating between like a casual variant and a more hardcore variant. Now, I was concerned because the 2v2 mode, despite it being fun, did not strike me as a flagship activity. But again, that was the Alpha. And today we're reviewing the Beta, which actually had 3 different modes we got to play this past weekend. We had regular quick play, which is essentially that normal arcade style that Call of Duty has always had. We also had realism, or I believe that's what it's called. Essentially, everything is dialed back in terms of your HUD. It's trying to take a more realistic approach. Things like when you get a kill, that score increase doesn't pop up on your screen. Radar does not exactly work until a UAV is active. Things like that. Turns out, realism mode was actually my favorite, and I don't know why. Like, I'm not a Call of Duty veteran. I've played a number of Call of Duty games, but I have never dabbled in any variant related to realism. This was my first time, and the few games that I did play it, I was like, hot damn, this is perfect. For some reason, it resonated with me. But that was the second mode. The third mode was essentially big team battle. Very similar to something like Battlefield. Some people love it, some people hate it. Not many people are in between. I personally don't like big team battles, considering that most of them are objective based, which is completely fine. But a lot of times people would just camp points and that's it. They'll just hit a high traffic area, get set up with their teammates, and mow you down. Now, of course, if I was a better player, this probably wouldn't be an issue. But I never really cared for the gigantic maps and the big team battle scenario similar to something like Battlefield. I mean, that's kind of the reason why I didn't stick it out with Battlefield. Battlefield was fun, but I mainly played essentially whatever the team deathmatch variant was for Battlefield. Maybe it's my Halo root speaking to me, maybe it's Destiny, maybe it's also Call of Duty there. Normally, I feel a little more comfortable in like an arena environment, but that's also because we only had 1 weekend to play this game, and when it comes to map knowledge, it's obviously much easier to learn a map that is smaller versus one that is larger. So when it comes to like big team battles, you'll need to spend extensive amount of time in there to get an understanding of the map as well as spawn points and other things. Now, I have no idea which one of these activities is the flagship activity. It's almost as if Call of Duty here is just trying to just throw us a bunch of different things, and whatever sticks, sticks. Well, we gotta talk about the things that they got right. Number 1, I'm gonna get hung up on sounds for a second, which I know sounds crazy. Immersion is a tricky thing. Some games nail it, others don't. This Call of Duty nails it. It's been a long time since I jumped, especially in a multiplayer game. I don't know what it was, but my first game I played, a grenade went off right next to me, and my God, I about jumped out of my chair. They got the sound perfect. Now, obviously, I've never had a frag grenade blow up next to my head, so I don't really have a comparison there. I'm just saying, if there was a grenade to go off next to my head, I think this is pretty much on the money, which might actually answer my question to why it is I like the realism mode so much. The immersion is just top tier here, which honestly just makes me want to play the campaign even more. Another thing they got right, guys, gunplay overall feels good. I felt like for the most part, weapons that were designed for their intended ranges worked as they should. Now, there were a few weapons that I felt like was like, whoa, okay, they're really starting to get outside of their intended ranges, or what it appears to be. First up, the M4. The hell's wrong with that gun? Maybe it's just supposed to be really good, but I swear I was getting absolutely mapped by people that weren't even tap firing. They were just laying on the trigger with that thing. And again, I'm not like a huge Call of Duty veteran, but I just felt like the M4 should not have been as good as it was this past beta. Not asking for nerfs, but I would be interested to know if that weapon was actually working the way it is intended to work. I think somebody stopped by the stream the other day and said that the M4 from the beta this past weekend was bugged. I don't have any sources on that. Now, as far as the weapons themselves, I really like the weapon craft system, or whatever it is that we can go in there and actually start building the weapon out, adding specs, perks, optics. I'm getting some major Division vibes when speccing our weapons out. Overall, everything in terms of the weapons, how they feel, how they sound, how incoming fire sounds, I really have nothing but good things to say about it. And that's pretty much for all weapon types. Nothing outside of maybe the M4 felt overpowered this past weekend. Now let's talk about movement, because there's always this tightrope being walked between too much mobility and boots on the ground, right? This game does have mobility to an extent. No, you're not wall running, but you can slide and other things. What I've found out is that sliding, although being a very nice feature, doesn't necessarily give you an advantage here in Call of Duty. Now, just about every engagement, say in a game like Destiny, I am always sliding. I slide whenever I shotgun, I slide whenever I snipe, I slide whenever I just run out there to shoot with a primary. It's a feature that immediately helps me. Where Call of Duty kind of bites you in the butt if you're trying to be overly mobile in terms of your slide feature is the small delay there before you can shoot your gun. Now, maybe there are perks that you can load out that will allow your gun there to ready a little faster, and I didn't necessarily dive into all the perks, but just off of your default character character, that is one of the issues that I ran into. So yes, you have added mobility compared to like your bare bones boots on the ground games, but don't expect an overwhelming advantage in most gunfights, as literally I would slide out and have to look an enemy in the eyes for a good like half a second before my gun was ready to start firing, which of course against good players, especially here on PC, they're just gonna shoot you, which really makes me sit down and analyze this Call of Duty. What is the skill ceiling factor here that makes this COD a game you would want to get better at? Well, hands down, speccing builds is extremely important, whatever that may be. Your tactical, your field ability, whether that's replenishing your ammo or deploying that shield, and there's a number of other different ones, but speccing your build to the type of player that you are, whether it's playing more aggressive or playing more passive, both have very high skill ceilings and also allows for your build to be optimized for both of those things. Like, I really like the emphasis put on the builds and perk combinations that you get, as well as the perk combinations that also jives with your weapons. But playing in the most recent beta, I think the skill sets you will definitely want to lock down if you want to get good at this game is of course map knowledge. Like, there's a constant war of bait and switch with this game. You bait too quickly, you run into the enemy. You wait too late to bait, the enemy's on top of you. And there's a constant back and forth with this, as well as extensive amounts of map knowledge. Also, if you do not own a very good pair of Astros or another headset that can decipher noise, it's extremely important, as I swear you can hear somebody from like 10 yards away breathing. Having a good headset, man, really picks up on all of that, almost to the point where I was going deaf toward the end of the weekend because I was trying to pick up on every bit of noise I could, which would really hurt when a flashbang went off next to you. Now, some of the other features that were added, you of course got your mount ability, similar to something like Rainbow Six Siege, where you can like either mount up on a wall and literally peek from side to side. This feature is not nearly as fluid as Rainbow Six, as the Modern Warfare beta here required an object for you to actually mount them on to do the peek, right? Whereas Rainbow Six, you can be shifting through all of the different angles and phases without actually physically being mounted up on anything, which allowed for a little more fluidity there. Call of Duty, I mean, there's gonna be some people that's gonna take advantage of that feature where you can peek out left or right. 9 times out of 10, I just got killed. You know, I'll peek out for a little bit and boom, you're dead. And that's partly because of the awkwardness of getting positioned in a way where you could take advantage of that feature. To me, it's just not needed. And I didn't really see anyone using that feature. And maybe that wasn't their intention. Maybe they meant it for just people that were just trying to post up somewhere and just trying to get a peek or an angle out without actually fully exposing their body. I just kind of wish there was a little more fluidity to it. Another thing I disliked was the vehicles. The vehicles, man, on Big Team Battle or whatever it's called, they moved so awkwardly. I can't tell you how much trouble I had just driving a tank around. Maybe that's intentional, but it almost seemed like the field of view dropped substantially when entering a vehicle. Now, of course, there could have been like a feature inside of my settings that actually dropped the field of view whenever you enter a vehicle. I did not see it. I looked. All I know is going from Blackout last year with Call of Duty, I felt like most of the vehicles in that game moved very well. These just feel super awkward. They're powerful. They're just really awkward to move around in. Overall, guys, I thought the beta was pretty good. I enjoyed myself. I thought the gunplay was nice. I feel like realism mode is going to be my favorite mode to play in, despite most of the gameplay here being quick play, but I didn't really get up into realism until the end of the weekend. Overall, it's another Call of Duty game, and I think there's actually a number of people that are going to purchase this game just for the campaign. And if the immersion is as good as it is here in multiplayer, I think we can expect a pretty darn good campaign, at least if the narrative is good. Like, if the narrative is ass, then yeah, it's just gonna all be ass. But if the narrative is good, on top of the added immersion, should be pretty solid, boys. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.